I can all but guarantee that you have heard both myself and countless other gamers and reviewers lament endlessly upon modern-day gaming's lack of soul, without ever anyone really being able to define what that soul is or what it means. I had a recent opportunity just the other day to revisit this idea, and I still don't have an answer. But what I do know is that it is almost immediately and inescapably detectable when it is there. So, this is not going to be an edited or particularly well thought out video. This is simply a stream of consciousness that was inspired by a recent quick playthrough of a very early access game called Vampire Syndicate Gangs of Moonfall. Now, this game was recommended to me by, well, you guys, the chat, during a stream, where they mentioned that there was this new vampire cyberpunk style game, and it had a trailer out. That trailer was really doing numbers, going viral, and racking up well over 250,000 views in a very short amount of time. And the trailer, which you are seeing right now, looks really damn good. And after the disastrous disappointment of various cyberpunk games in the past, the idea of combining Vampire the Masquerade with the cyberpunk, well, that sounded really good. And a lot of people apparently agreed, as the project was fully funded in 6 hours and raised a pretty impressive $117,000. I decided to back it on Kickstarter as well back in 2024, and thereafter pretty much just simply forgot about it, expecting that it would come out whenever it came out. And just the other day, a very early access version of the game was released on Steam. Now, before we go any further, by the way, as there will be a light amount of glazing, the game is in an exceedingly early access state of being right now. This is indie early access, not AAA. Not only is the story obviously not finished yet, only containing about couple of hours, maybe, in grand total, but there are also parts of the game that are blatantly simply not finished. Missing assets, missing parts of the world, major mechanics that are not in the game yet, etc., etc. And so as a standalone proposition, I could not possibly recommend it for the current price of $20, or, well, frankly, almost at any price due to the unfinished nature of it. However, the developer is committed to putting out monthly updates to the story, which is a progression system that they've had success with in the past. So, why am I even making this video? Well, you see, I sat down to play it expecting nothing, really. I had had a quick look into the developer's pedigree before backing the Kickstarter, and it was a strange experience, as their previous games are all very low-budget looking things with some particularly fascinating names, like one of them being called Memories of a Battle Brothel, which almost made me decide to not back the Kickstarter right there, because clearly this isn't a serious developer. But all of the reviews I came across for games like that, both professional reviewers and on the Steam page, were weirdly glowing. Like, one of my favorite ones comes across as, "This is what Cyberpunk should have been, and reminds me strangely of Knights of the Old Republic." And there was nothing but praise like this. People going, well, I went into this expecting nothing, and I was blown away. So, naturally, my pickle was tickled. Sitting down then to finally play this game, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, it's not going to be anything special. I'm not really going to get sucked in. I'm going to sit there and be like, oh, God, I did waste a bunch of money on this, didn't I? It's just some half-assed 2D production that will never amount to much of anything. But weirdly, that was not the feeling I was getting at all. Even as I was looking at blatantly unfinished assets, literally you can see into the void from parts of the city, repeated textures all over the place, no voice acting, virtually no animations, a completely unfinished overworld map, and a very simplistic combat system. It is everything that I would normally think I would find incredibly uninteresting and boring, in addition to some spicy scenes as well that I found rather uninspired, because I've grown too old to be easily pleased by such things. And yet, despite every single element individually being something that my brain is thinking, well, this isn't interesting, this should turn me off, I found myself oddly attached to it. Maybe I'm simply experiencing some sort of sunk cost fallacy here, entirely possible, but as I was playing it, reading the dialogue and looking at the world, I felt a strange sense of connection towards it, in a way that I haven't to a role-playing game in God only knows how many years. As these days, I really don't find RPGs to be all of that interesting in general. The world usually just doesn't capture me in the way that I was once used to with games like Vampire the Masquerade. Perhaps I was in part spoiled by having that be, and the titles like Baldur's Gate, be some of the first role-playing games I ever experienced. My bar is perhaps a pinch too elevated for the modern day's version of role-playing games. And it ended up also reminding me of another game I played years ago called Vambrace Cold Soul. A game whose combat was ass, whose UI was ass, and whose basic gameplay design philosophy of trying to be Darkest Dungeon, but worse, was also ass. And yet I found myself deeply charmed by the world, by the dialogue, by its presentation. It's the exact same feeling I now got from Vampire Gangs of Moonfall. This strange sense that despite all of the individual parts and pieces that just aren't finished, or are otherwise far more simplistic than I would normally like, combined into a strange feeling of a greater whole, which made me feel a genuine sense of disappointment when I reached the end of the current early access. I even wanted to do more of the combat. Even though it was ass, I, for a weird reason, feel a certain draw towards it. And I was particularly fascinated by the characters as well, and the fact that this world seemed to have far more layers and interesting pieces to it than initially apparent. Now, all of this comes back to not really a recommendation, mind you, because again, my original opening statement stands. There is nowhere near enough content here to justify a $20 early access ask at all. In fact, I'm kind of surprised they even decided to do an early access, and in essence, it's less of an actual early access and more of a beta version, really, for the people who backed the Kickstarter. But what I will say, and the reason why I decided to do this video at all, is you should definitely keep an eye on this title for when it develops more fully, because I could be completely wrong. Again, perhaps this is simply a case of sunk cost fallacy, that I somehow managed to hypnotize myself into seeing qualities that aren't actually there, but I have a weird feeling that this could be a genuinely fantastic narrative story once it's actually been made, that is, of course. Especially as it also tickles one of my own little pet peeves, namely the idea that as this is a spicy video game, which I would never recommend on YouTube, of course, for obvious reasons, I've always believed that spicy scenes in video games should be just a natural part of games that are already rated for a mature audience, and shying away from it really just ends up giving you that weird, dense anime harem protagonist vibe. Whereas in reality, the spicier scene should simply be a accompaniment to the relationships that you form with characters in a game world over time. And in this respect, by the way, I do have a complaint as well, as the spicy scenes are far too readily available and easy to earn at the moment in Vampire Syndicate. But considering we've only even scratched the absolute surface of the game's story, perhaps I'm complaining a bit too early on that count. Regardless, the point is, this is an incredibly early game that I wouldn't recommend you buy, and yet I felt compelled to tell you about it because I feel like there really could be something incredible here. Maybe at some point in the future. So take that for what you will. I've now soothed my urge to talk about it, and will leave you to your devices. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.